Hello, this is going to be a video on solving quadratics by square roots. We haven't exactly talked about that in this class, but this is something that you learn to do in Algebra 1, all right? So it says quadratic equations of the form. What? Many different quadratics, I don't know. Quadratics with no C, or with no B, basically. Uh, Quadratic equations of this form, all right? They can be solved using the square root property, which basically just says if x squared equals k, then x equals plus or minus the square root of k. All right, and that plus or minus is important because of the way that squareds work, where it could be a positive number turning into k, or it could be that same negative number and it would still turn into k. So you still actually have two answers here, just like with the quadratic formula and just like with factoring. So these are your steps, all right? You want to get x squared by itself. You want to take the square root of both sides, and then you're just going to simplify the radicals. So this is why we talked about simplifying radicals yesterday. So if we have x squared equals 64, this is a pretty easy one. We already have the x squared by itself. So we take the square root of both sides, and we get x equals plus or minus 8. Now, we kind of talked about this above. It says y plus or minus. Well, I mean, think about, because 8 squared equals 64, but negative 8 squared also equals 64. So that's why you end up getting two answers when you're solving an equation that involves the x squared, okay? So we can do a couple of these, all right? We got 2x squared equals negative 8. So before you take the square root, right, you got to get the x squared by itself. That's really important. So we need to divide by 2 to start. So that gives us x squared equals negative 4. All right, now we could take the square root of both sides. So we have x equals the square root of negative 4. Now remember, you can't have a negative number inside a square root. So what that means is we've got our handy dandy I here, right? The square root of 4 is 2. We still have our plus or minus. I don't like the way I wrote that. We still have our plus or minus, but that negative sign is going to turn into an I. Okay, more solving. So we got to get, again, this x squared by itself. So we've got 8x squared equals 16. We need to divide by 8. We get x squared equals 2. Take the square root of both sides. X equals plus or minus the square root of 2. Now, if this isn't a perfect square, then you can't actually take the square root of that number. So you can just leave it like square root of 2. All right. If you need to simplify it, you can simplify it. You can't break up 2 because it's the smallest composite number. Actually, it's a prime number, but whatever. Can't break it up. Next one. Again, we need to solve for x squared, so let's start doing that. So we're going to subtract by 5 on both sides. So we got 81 x squared equals 16. Now we can divide by 81. So we got x squared equals 16 over 81. Now, this is a weird fraction. Could I simplify this fraction? Maybe, I don't know, but I don't even care because I don't want to simplify it, because I notice that both of these numbers here are perfect squares. So I don't want to simplify it, because when I take the square root of both sides, square root of 16 is 4, the square root of 81 is 9. So if we had simplified it, then we might not have been able to see this so easily. Again, don't even know if it could simplify because I didn't even think about it. E again, so I'm just kind of going through the same things here. All right, we're going to add 9 on both sides. So we got 2x squared equals 64. Divide by 2. X squared equals 32. Now I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So here, all right, 32 actually can be broken up, all right? It's not a perfect square, but it can be broken up into the square root of 16 times the square root of 2. So my answer here, square root of 16 is going to be 4. Square root of 2 is going to be 2. And I just realized I didn't put the plus or minus here. Let's see, even I forget it. Did I put it for this one? Yeah. Okay. So this one, your answer would be x plus or minus 4 square root of 2. So hopefully you can see that you're kind of just doing the same things over and over here. So minus 8 on both sides, trying to get that x squared by itself. 7 equals negative 7. Divide by 7. We get x squared equals negative 1. Take the square root of both sides. We get x equals... Now, what is the square root of negative 1? Now, remember, the square root of negative 1 is I, right? So this is just plus or minus I. Whew, man. They like to just keep giving us more to do. Okay, minus 4. Minus 4. Again, same thing. We're trying to get the x squared by itself. Negative 3x squared equals negative 81. Divide both sides by negative 3. X squared equals 27. Square root of both sides. X equals, so how can we break up 27? That can be broken up into the square root of 9 times the square root of 3. The square root of 9 is 3, so this will be plus or minus 3 square root of 3. Fractions. Do fractions make it any harder? No, it doesn't, because you guys know how to solve fractions. Subtract by 1 on both sides. We get negative 1/2 x squared equals negative 40. Now, you know how to get rid of this. You multiply by the reciprocal, right? So multiply by negative 2. That cancels these out. So we get x squared equals 80. Take the square root of both sides. 80, that can be broken up into, I think, the square root of 16 times the square root of 5. So x equals plus or minus 4 square root of 5. Voila. Last one. Okay, so we got plus 1, negative 2/3 x squared equals 18. Okay, now what do? Now we need to get rid of that, so we need to multiply by the reciprocal, which is negative 3/2. Now we need to figure out what is 18 times negative 3/2. Well, remember, you can multiply straight across, so 18 times negative 3, that's 36, 54 over 2. Negative 54 divided by 2, that's negative 37. So we've got x squared equals negative 37. Take the square root on both sides. 37, I feel like, can't be broken up. But there is a negative sign, so we can pull that out and make I, so we can just have plus or minus I radical 37. So that's how you do this today. Hopefully this made sense. Hopefully you remembered how to simplify radicals from yesterday, because we definitely had to do that a lot here. Hope you remembered how to work with I, but basically you're just solving, getting the x squared by itself and then taking the square root of both sides. So go ahead and give this practice a shot. If you have any questions, let me know, and have a great day.